There's another element there that I think is the key element, and that is an agreed upon hierarchy.
It's not the industry, honey. It's the whole gender. It's men and women. This is about men and women.
You just called me honey.
Yeah. Because you got to get with this.
Woody Allen, innocent or guilty?
Don't care.
There was a lot of activity, let's call it, frivolity.
I miss a dominant masculinity. Yeah, I get the toxic thing. But still, I like a real man.
Men and women, you know, chase after each other, right? Right?
Yes.
Yes, they do.
In comedy, we hate that. We can't fix the world, but we just want to make a face happy. I've always wanted to be a real man. I never made it.
The scene is Central Park in New York City. A 17-year-old is rollerblading, just enjoying the day, when a 38-year-old man spots her. Infatuated, he thinks about this girl and comes back to the park later that day to find her. Creepy, right? After he finds her again in the park, they end up dating for 3 years. Yikes! Jerry Seinfeld. He's not just a creep who dated a 17-year-old when he was 38, he's also your parents' favorite hack comedian. A comedy juggernaut from before the woke blue hairs turned all jokes into huggies and kissies. He's had a slap-based show, a movie about a bee who fucks, and a film about pastries, propped up by many more successful comedians. But why does he get a creep pass? Surely it's universally understood that if you knew someone who was 38 and they dated a 17-year-old, you would think of this person in a completely different way. Like when you're 38 years old and you have a friend coming up to you saying, man, my girlfriend's homeroom teacher is just a pain, that's an issue. But Seinfeld has somehow been labeled a comedy legend. And comedy is subjective. I'm not the comedy police. I can't determine what's funny or not. I'll let you be the judge of that. But this is my video, and Seinfeld's not funny. That's just the way it is. Despite all this creepy stuff, Jerry Seinfeld is really known the world over as a comedy legend. But what if it turned out that this comedy legend is just bad at comedy? Wait. I know what you're thinking. Slow down, you millennium demon spawn. I'm laughing at Seinfeld. I'm watching the show, and I'm goofing, and I'm having a good time. So, you know, don't you try to take that away from me. I'm not trying to take anything away from you. I just want you to consider some things about Seinfeld, and if you are cool with it, then, you know, keep watching it. These are the things that make me think that Seinfeld is just kind of a huge piece of shit, and just a really big creep. Again, I don't think it should go any further. I don't think we need to go beyond the threshold of a 38-year-old man dated a 17-year-old. In what world would you be cool with that? I mean, that just says so much about a person. But I get it. Some people need more convincing. So I'm going to give you some more stuff, and we're going to take a look at Jerry Seinfeld and why he's a comedy creep. Okay, so like I was saying before, if you're laughing at the show Seinfeld and you just think I'm some whiny woke millennial, that's fine. I am some whiny woke millennial. That's totally fine. I'm fine with being a whiny woke millennial. I don't care. So like I was saying, if you find yourself laughing at the show Seinfeld, I don't think that's without reason, because think about the show Seinfeld. It's written by some incredibly talented people, and I think we can look at the intros of the show to sort of illustrate the point that Jerry was surrounded by a lot of really talented people. Writers, comedians, who outclass him in every regard. I mean, the best parts of the show are not the intro. Some people might like these stand-up intros, I get it. Some people like Jerry Seinfeld's comedy, whatever. But I feel like his comedy just doesn't evoke anything more than a tepid little laugh, you know? A nose laugh, maybe. Or like, you know? Let's take a look at the intros, the stand-up, because that's clearly written by him, right? I mean, that's just his material doing for the show. So let's take a look at some of these. Surely there's got to be some good stuff here, right? I mean, he's a comedy legend, so let's take a look.
I always feel bad for the silver medal winner in the Olympics. I mean, how do you live with that the rest of your life? People are gonna keep asking you, how much did you lose by? I don't even know. It was like, no. Like, no. It's like, no. Was it? That was it. I trained, I worked out, I exercised, I did everything. I was doing push-ups, sit-ups. I never did anything but exercise and work out for 20 years. I flew halfway around the world. The guy shot the gun. And that was it. It was a photo finish. Silver, gold. If I had a pimple, I would have won. You know, you throw a rock into a crowd, that's considered terrorism. But if you have a nice follow-through, you know, that's golf. Car names are so stupid, aren't they? No baron has ever owned a LeBaron. You know, or the Ford LTD. LTD, limited. It's a limited edition. What do they make, 50 million of those? Yes, it's limited to the number we can sell. Or when they try and mangle a positive word into a car name. You know how they'll do that? The Integra. Oh, integrity? No, Integra. The Supra. Or the Impreza. Yeah? Well, I hope it's not a Lemona. Or you'll be hearing from my lawyer.
Oh, shit, that was awful. But comedy is subjective, like I was saying. So surely as a comedy legend, he would have some other projects under his belt. That would be good, right? Let's take a look at his cinematic works, right? I mean, he's probably got some really good movies. I think we've got B-Movie and Unfrosted.
Oh, wait. How did you learn to do that?
What?
That. The talking thing.
Oh, same way you did, I guess. Mama, Dada, honey. You pick it up.
That's very funny.
Yeah. Bees are funny. If we didn't laugh, we'd cry with what we have to deal with. Anyway.
Can I, get you something?
This section of the video got hit by Jerry Seinfeld's copyright goons. He does not want you to see this Pop-Tart film. I repeat, he does not want you to see this Pop-Tart film. He is hiding the truth.
All right, well, some comedians, they're not like movie people, right? That's like a different format, so it might not count. He's got comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. Let's take a look at that. He's probably funny in that. Off the cuff, right? I mean, just riffing on life. That's got to be his thing. Let's see.
I'm sure the Chinese have seen the fork, but we're staying with the stick.
All right, he's got to be beloved for a reason, right? Like maybe he's chill and he's got like cool takes on shit and like he's just like a chill guy or whatever. None of this is going to be funny, is it? As a comedian, you have to make me laugh, right? I mean, comedians who are complaining about the state of comedy and that they aren't getting laughs from people because, you know, woke PC culture killed comedy, they just can't write jokes anymore. I mean, that's literally all it is. If you're finding yourself blaming anybody but yourself for not making people laugh, that just means your jokes aren't good. I don't make rules. That's just literally the way it goes. Jerry Seinfeld agrees with this, by the way. His whole take on comedy is that it's self-correcting. Jerry, take it away.
The rules of comedy are immutable, and the ecosystem of comedy is not the most, but one of the most self-correcting ecosystems. I said to somebody the other day, comedy corrects itself. The only one that is way, way better would be the NFL. If you don't belong in the NFL and you are in the NFL, how long does it take them to notice you really don't belong on that field? Fast, right? And comedy is a slower, the wheels of justice grind slower, but they do turn.
So, same rules as always.
So the rules are either you're funny or I'm not getting in my car to go see this.
Okay, so comedy is self-correcting for everybody in the world except him. That's just the way it goes, right? It just happens to be that for some reason he can't tell his French gay king joke anymore because we're just so offended by it. It's just so edgy and funny that it just can't be told. You know, it's us, right? His comedy is so funny. It's going right over our heads, right? And if you haven't heard about this gay French king joke, he talks about it all the time, right? It's something he did on one of the Jimmys, Kimmel or Fallon, I don't even know. He talks about going through the cell phone like a gay French king. I don't know. He's gotten booze before for doing that joke at colleges, and he just feels like he can't do it anymore. Yet here's him doing it on one of the Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, something like that.
But I know you got your phone. Everybody here's got their phone. There's not one person here who doesn't have it. You better have it. You gotta have it, because there is no safety, there is no comfort, there is no security for you in this life anymore.
Unless when you're walking down the street, you can feel a hard rectangle in your pants. And you want some solid juice in it, too. You want a juiced up hard rectangle down there. That's your life because of the people, right? That you need to stay in touch with that are so important. The people in your life, they're so important, aren't they? Yeah. Really? They don't seem very important. Not the way you scroll through their names on your contact list like a gay French king. Who pleases me today? Who shall I favor? Who shall I delete?
So I find it interesting that Jerry's got this take on comedy that it's self-correcting, and he's got this material that's just really not that great. But people go out to see him anyway. You know, that's the thing about being, powerful and having the notoriety that he has, right? He's got a legion of fans who are just gonna go see him, you know? So he doesn't need to be good anyway. But this is also why he wants the hierarchy of the 60s to come back. And listen to him in this interview, he talks about it himself. He literally says hierarchy is what is gone in this day and age, and that's what he wishes we had back.
There's another element there that I think is the key element, and that is an agreed upon hierarchy, which I think is absolutely vaporized in today's moment.
Okay.
And I think that is why people lean on the horn and drive in the crazy way that they drive. Because we have no sense of hierarchy. And as humans, we don't really feel comfortable like that. So that is part of what I think is, if you want to talk about nostalgia, that's part of what makes that moment attractive looking back. And the other thing is, as a man, can I say that?
You sure you are? Are you?
I've always wanted to be.
I didn't ask your pronouns before we began.
I've always wanted to be a real man. I never made it. But I really thought when I was in that era, again, it was JFK, it was Muhammad Ali, it was Sean Connery, Howard Cosell. You can go all the way down there. That's a real man. I want to be like that someday. Well, no. I never really grew up. You don't want to as a comedian because it's a childish pursuit. But I miss a dominant masculinity. Yeah, I get the toxic thing. I get it. But still, I like a real man.
And there's a reason he wants this hierarchy back, right? It puts him in power, right? And when you have power, you don't need to be as good. That hierarchy is the exact kind of thing that rots industries from the inside out and enables predators like Harvey Weinstein to do the horrible things that they do. But speaking of Harvey Weinstein and the whole Me Too movement, I mean, Jerry never thought much of that anyway. Here's him talking about it in his own regard, saying, it's not the industry's fault. This is just how men and women behave.
Let's talk about serious things then. The Me Too campaign.
Yes.
What's wrong with the industry? I mean, are you asking yourself how come all of this
is coming?
It's not
the industry, honey. It's the whole gender. It's men and women. This is about men and women.
You just called me honey.
Yeah. Because you got to get with this. It's not show business. This is global.
Did you see any of it? Because everyone's saying it was all around and everyone knew about it, but then...
Well, which show? Who are we talking about?
Just things that were going on around in studios and networks.
Honestly, I've never seen, and during the years when I worked on my show, and even in the nightclubs, I mean, a lot of the comedians, there was a lot of activity, let's call it, frivolity, comedians and waitresses and everybody. I mean, men and women, chase after each other, right? Right?
Yes.
Yes, they do. Now, I've never seen it done in a way that was that I thought that's not right.
So you're
what
surprised,
that guy's doing.
So you're surprised with all this Me Too campaign and things that are coming out now?
No, I'm not surprised. But you asked me if I had seen it.
Okay.
So I haven't.
Yikes, that was gross. We need a palate cleanser, I think. Like any amount of comedy would do right now. Anything. If I could just find a little piece of comedy anywhere in the world right now. I needed that. That comment made me laugh so hard when I first saw it. When random people on the internet can outclass you in comedy, you need to be a lot better than you were before, right? There's a lot more people out there cracking jokes. So maybe your jokes aren't standing the test of time because they're just not as funny as you thought they were. And come to think of it, maybe we're confusing Jerry's humor, Jerry's comedy, Jerry's funniness with the proximity to actual funny people. He's around funny people all the time. So it makes sense that people end up thinking Jerry's funny. I mean, they're always laughing when Jerry's on the screen, but that's probably because somebody else is either giving him a line to make you laugh or is making you laugh themselves, right? Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, he's with other comedians in a car, right? He's not the funniest guy on the show. I mean, watch, he's just not.
Your bra strap is slipping. There it is, Big
Wow,
Lots.
I think I knew there's one around here.
I've always wanted to go to a Big Lots. You know what I like about Big Lots?
What?
The exclamation point.
That's what you like about them.
Am I boring you?
Women are doing everything that we did. I remember the first time I was in a strip club and a woman walked in the strip club, she's coming to see the women. I felt something's wrong here. This is a man's place. Well, this is the last bastion.
Men are looking to hold on to a piece of their territory.
What?
You know, I don't prepare anything for these shows.
No kidding.
No.
Does your company make other things other than this show, or do
No.
you just do this?
I don't even think my company does this.
And look at the other people Jerry has worked with. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Larry David, like all the people in Unfrosted that aren't him. They have worked on critically successful films and proven themselves to be funny people that can adapt with the times, right? And not in a way that makes you go, oh, Larry David or Julia Louis-Dreyfus is writing something that's woke or whatever your complaint with current day comedy is. No, they write with the sensitivities of the day in mind because that's how you make things funnier to a broader audience. And, you know, Jerry often gets credit for being a clean comedian, right? Which I respect people who can do comedy clean. I think that's way harder. So if you can pull it off, you're really funny. I mean, that's just the way it is. But that alone doesn't make you a good comedian just because you go clean. So Jerry's jokes there's no edge to it. And Jerry even said about the show Seinfeld in a Vanity Fair interview once the show was over, for the last 2 seasons, much has been made of David's absence from Seinfeld. I know the critics say the show is not as good, says Seinfeld, showing a rare sign of vulnerability. David did bring a great deal of texture to the characters. He was the original model for George. He'd wanted to play the part, but I was tall. And after his departure, a certain broadness set in. Broadness, I feel like that's a really good word to describe Jerry's comedy, right? Because he takes basically a shower thought and then tries to turn that into a joke. Like, for the way this guy talks about comedy as an art and everything, which it absolutely is, just like he has no care about his craft. I mean, here's a perfect example. Look at how his comedy has developed since Seinfeld. Look at this.
No. Xanthem.
Fuck, man, you're doing the Newman stuff in the Pop-Tarts. That's all you're doing. But it makes sense that his comedy wouldn't change at all over time. I mean, he says people don't have access to comedy anymore. Just listen to what he said in this interview. Nothing really affects comedy. People always need it. They need it so badly, and they don't get it. It used to be you would go home at the end of the day. Most people would go, oh, Cheers is on. Oh, MASH is on. Oh, Mary Tyler Moore is on. All in the Family is on. You just expected there'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap, and people worrying so much about offending other people. Now they're going to see stand-up comics because we are not policed by anyone. The audience polices us. We know when we're off track. We know instantly, and we adjust to it instantly. But when you write a script and it goes into 4 or 5 different hands, committees, groups, here's our thought about this joke, well, that's the end of your comedy. And in that same interview, he continues on saying about Larry David, yeah, Larry was grandfathered in. He's old enough so that I don't have to observe those rules because I started before you made those rules. We did an episode of the series in the 90s where Kramer decided to start a business of having homeless people pull rickshaws because he says, they're outside anyway. Do you think I could get that episode on the air today? But you think Larry got grandfathered in, and there could be no 35-year-old version of... Right. If Larry was 35, he couldn't get away with the watermelon stuff and Palestinian chicken. And HBO knows that's what people come here for. But they're not smart enough to figure out, how do we do this now? Do we take the heat or just not be funny? And what they've decided to be is, well, we're not going to do comedies anymore. There were no sitcoms picked up on the fall season of all 4 networks. Not one. No new sitcoms. It's too hard. And again, in the same interview, he compares comedy to skiing, saying, skiing, yeah, culture, the gates are moving. Your job is to be agile and clever enough that wherever they put the gates, I'm going to make the gate. All right, let me just give Jerry some credit real quick. It is genuinely funny that he thinks he's agile and clever enough to make the gate. I find it funny that he says Larry David was grandfathered in, because Larry David has a successful show that has changed and adapted over time and still remain funny. I mean, Curb Your Enthusiasm is one of the funniest shows out there, and it's changed over time, and it's got Larry's... to say that he was grandfathered in is just kind of undercutting his ability to write and what he does as a comedian. Jerry's saying the rules didn't apply to Larry David, so he got to do something different than everybody else got to do, which is simply untrue. Larry David has been a funny comedian and writer, and he changes with the times. He's adapted, right? He's made new things. He hasn't been stuck in the same old Seinfeld rut. He left the show before the others. He wanted to do something new, and he's changed and adapted over time. Something that Jerry has shown that he just can't do. And in terms of saying a 35-year-old's doing Seinfeld in the modern era wouldn't work, I mean, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. If you've seen the show, it's basically like, you know, the same kind of premise as Seinfeld, but it's edgier, it's funnier, and it's changed over time and reflected society in a way that is still humorous. So, you know, it's not society saying that this can't happen or that edgy comedy is just off the table. You have to make good material. That's all there is to it. So it's not that the show couldn't happen in this day and age. It already has, multiple times. What has Seinfeld done that's great since Seinfeld? You might like some of his projects, like Comedians Getting Cars and Coffee or whatever, but it's not groundbreaking. It's interviews. He's not doing anything new creatively. He's not bringing anything new to the comedy table. So for him to be considered a comedy legend, I don't know, seems like a stretch to me. But comedy's not the only thing that Jerry Seinfeld has some questionable takes on. In 2018, Jerry Seinfeld brought his family to Israel and made a visit to the Caliber 3 training facility located in the West Bank. Caliber 3 is one of several similar facilities that puts the IDF's practice of colonial violence into the hands of tourists by offering unique family-friendly experiences like the 2-hour shooting adventure, which includes a simulation of a suicide bombing in a Jerusalem marketplace, immediately followed by a stabbing attack, a live demonstration with attack dogs, and a sniper tournament. The cost of the basic package is $115 per adult and $85 per child. From Caliber 3's own website, the IDF Shooting Adventure is an exciting, one-of-a-kind program that puts you, your family, and friends in the boots of a combat soldier for 2 hours through live demonstrations, training, shooting, and learning about the most moral army in the world, the Soul of Israel. Adults and children train side by side, making this a fun activity for the whole family. The program is suitable for visitors age 4 and up. As per Israeli law, adults will participate using .22 caliber rifles and 12-gauge shotguns, and anyone under the age of 18 will use a paintball gun. These tourist experiences are peddling IDF propaganda to an international market and helping to normalize the genocide against Palestinians. Jerry, of course, knows all this. He's a proud Zionist, and after his visit to Caliber 3 in 2018, the facility posted this online. Finally, we are allowed to tell you. Jerry Seinfeld and his family were in Caliber 3 during their visit to Israel last week. They came to us for a special and exciting activity with displays of combat, Krav Maga, assault dogs, and lots of Zionism. It was great. And you can see the IDF propaganda being instilled in people, even in an example from this Haaretz article. Back at Caliber 3, Matt and Susan Parker are feeling relieved an hour into the morning activity. Their 10-year-old son got frightened by the sound of gunshots when he walked in and threatened not to participate. But by now, as his father describes it, he's eager for his next turn shooting an assault rifle. From Westchester County, New York, the Parkers are visiting Israel to celebrate the bar mitzvah of their older son. The kids don't want to go to museums, and this is something totally different, unique, and cool, says the father, a wealth advisor at Morgan Stanley. His wife, who made all the arrangements based on recommendations from friends, describes the visit to Caliber 3 as a highlight of our trip. It was the idea of shooting a gun for the first time that initially sold her boys, says Susan, a manufacturer of bridesmaid dresses. But it's been so much more than that, she notes. Our boys now have a better understanding of what it takes to defend Israel and to keep Israel a Jewish state. Jerry, of course, knows all this. He's a proud Zionist who conflates the Israeli state with Judaism as a whole, completely ignoring the fact that Jews are not a monolith and the Israeli state is not representative of the entire Jewish diaspora. This is important to note because claiming that the state of Israel itself is representative of Jews as a whole is something that can lead to real anti-Semitism. None of this is surprising either. Jerry fantasizes about hierarchy, about dominant men being masculine, like the good old days. His childish desire to see male gender performance leads him to idolize the concept of good guys and bad guys. If a charismatic strongman comes along that Jerry thinks is a grade A beefcake, that's who Jerry wants to hitch his wagon to. He loves a good power imbalance. Speaking of which, I think a 38-year-old dating a 17-year-old to me is indicative of a huge problem and a huge character flaw. Because in interviews before he got married to his current wife, he often would romanticize this relationship. Not only by Seinfeld, but perhaps by media and people in general. Nobody ever seemed to care that he dated this young girl. I've talked to older people in my life who know about this sort of thing, and it's sort of like, oh yeah, that is creepy, but I like the show. I think this really illustrates just how creepy and disgusting this sort of thing was. It's around 10 p.m. on a Thursday, and Seinfeld is nursing his second glass of white wine in the bar at the Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills. He's not much of a drinker, so he's a little bit looser than usual. He's trying to recall a particular party game that supposedly reveals character. You name a body of water, he explains, not certain of how this works. And that's what you want from sex. And you say your favorite color, and that's how you see yourself. And then you name your favorite animal, and those are the qualities you're looking for in a mate. Seinfeld takes a small sip. My favorite body of water is clear and blue like the Caribbean. My favorite color is blue because it's deep and warm and reassuring. And my favorite animal is the dolphin, because it has a great body and a nice disposition. Seinfeld pauses. Where does that leave me? It's hard to say, so I pose a simpler party question. What scary thing have you never done? Well, Seinfeld replies rather proudly, I've gone skydiving, hang gliding, been to racing car school. I like high-risk activities. I played golf once. It wasn't dangerous enough. I'd rather be in the gallery and get hit by a ball. Seinfeld thinks for a moment. I guess the scariest thing I haven't done is get married. I still feel I'm not old enough. I think your 50s would be a wonderful time to be married. Right now, I'm too busy with other things to really look at any relationship in a serious way. Seinfeld has a general idea. Think dolphin, a great body and a nice disposition, of what he's looking for in a wife. I don't want my wife to work, he insists. I've had enough career for both of us. The wife needs to be fun-loving. Let's drive cross-country. Let's go to Corfu. Let's have fun. He takes another sip. People aren't as fun-loving as you think. They have all kinds of other things that they have to do. This is a thinly veiled reference to his last girlfriend, Shoshana Lonstein, whom he began dating when she was 17 and he was 38. They met by chance as Lonstein rollerbladed past Seinfeld in Central Park. I really liked that girl, Seinfeld later told a friend. He returned to the park that day and miraculously found her again. A year later, Lonstein transferred from George Washington University, where she was a freshman, to UCLA. She kept her own apartment and was, by all accounts, remarkably calm about having such a famous boyfriend. Shoshana is older than her years, says a friend who spent time with the couple. She has a certain sophistication about the world. Jerry respected her. He listened to her. They really loved each other. I know everyone looked at that relationship as, here's this rich TV guy and here's this young, hot girl, but it wasn't like that at all. We were very much in love, but the timing wasn't quite right. He stares a second. I almost got married to Shoshana, but it didn't feel like our lives were dovetailing. She was starting out in life, and I was finishing up a big chapter. She's the type of person who needed to do things. She'll accomplish a great deal. Suddenly, Seinfeld seems blue. The timing wasn't quite right, he says again, but it was wonderful. Lonstein and Seinfeld no longer speak. She's moved back to New York, where she's often photographed at clubs or restaurant openings, identified as Seinfeld's ex-girlfriend. So how has Seinfeld remained relatively immune to criticism, considering all these things he's done that are just questionable? It feels like, in a way, Shoshana's identity was sort of stripped away, right? She's Seinfeld's ex-girlfriend. That's how you're referred to, right? That's the power imbalance there. Why does the title of comedy legend or, having a really great show grant you immunity from having done some really dangerous things? Dating a 17-year-old when you're 38 is beyond the pale of something that's acceptable. It's completely disgusting. And it's just not part of how we identify him, really. When in so many other cases, people without power, or something like that, that's how we would immediately identify them. I mean, if you were a 38-year-old dating a 17-year-old, that's your main identity. That's how everyone's gonna know you. No one's gonna wanna be around you because that's a weird thing. But if you're rich and powerful, the rules change. Why is that? I'm curious myself. And what do you think of Seinfeld? Do you think he's a comedy legend? Do you think none of this stuff matters? I think it's really important. I think it's worth talking about. But let me know in the comments below, what's your view on Seinfeld and all that? And guys, really quick, if you're liking the video, please subscribe, like, help the channel grow. I'm trying to create more really great content, and I want to give you guys all sorts of great stuff. So like and subscribe. Let me know what you'd like me to make videos on in the comments below. My personal feelings about Seinfeld's comedy aside, I don't think it's very good. I don't think he's funny. So, whatever. That's the problem I had with him in the first place. But then when I learned about all this other creepy stuff about him, I mean, there's huge issues here, right? My biggest problem with Seinfeld is that he doesn't believe he has anything to do with anything that goes on in the world.
Everything feels politicized right now.
Yeah.
And so you yourself have become politicized in a way.
Little bit, yeah.
Do you feel that?
I do.
You comfortable with it?
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. In fact, when we get protesters occasionally, I love to say to the audience, I love that these young people, they're trying to get engaged with politics. We have to just correct their aim a little bit. They don't seem to understand that as comedians, we really don't control anything.
Right, right.
No one's really...
No, you're pulling the strings over the war in Gaza,
yeah.
Right? That's how I think of you.
Yeah.
You've done a bunch of shows, obviously. You're constantly doing shows. You did one in Syracuse in December that attracted protesters, and then they were chanting that you're complicit in genocide. Then when I gave this talk in February at the Y, there was this footage of you where they were calling you a genocide supporter and Nazi scum. And the thing that jumped out at me was not the things they were saying, of course, because they say it to anyone.
Yeah.
It's that you were smiling and waving and genuinely seemed to be enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah.
Why?
It's so silly. It's like, they wanna express this, sincere, intense rage, but again, a little off target.
Right, right.
Little off target. So that's, to me, comedic,
But here's the thing, when you're a massive celebrity and you have a huge platform, you can do something. You acting in certain ways advocates for certain ways of thinking. You going to Caliber 3 and playing IDF makes people think that that kind of thing is okay. You dating a 17-year-old when you're 38 and people just going, well, I mean, I like his show, so I guess that's okay, that is enabling that kind of behavior. He doesn't think somebody like Woody Allen has committed a crime or done anything creepy. That's incredibly telling to me. And when people have these sort of dangerous takes and a huge platform, it can cause a lot of problems. But it's no surprise that younger generations really are not into Jerry Seinfeld, and hopefully that's something that continues. But I want to know what you guys think about Jerry. Do you think he's a comedy legend or comedy creep? I'm on team comedy creep. Let me know where you're at. Let me know in the comments below. I know there's lots of people who are going to be like, I love Jerry Seinfeld, and I like him even more for this. I've seen, I posted a trailer for this video a couple days ago, and it was very interesting to see the difference on platforms, the reactions that people gave me. You know, on YouTube Shorts, lots of people going like, oh, I love Jerry for this. Like, yeah, get that woke stuff out of my comedy. And then on TikTok, everyone was like, ew, Jerry Seinfeld is a creep. So maybe there's some generational differences. Maybe that's just indicative of those two platforms. I don't know. But, you know, this is kind of what's going on in the whole Jerry Seinfeld world.